What if touching an ancient stone could send you 200 years into the past? No warning, no way back. 1 second you're in 1945 and the next, you're standing in the middle of a war you were never meant to see. That's exactly what happened to Claire Randall. And her life was never the same. The wind howls across the Scottish Highlands. A circle of ancient stones stands quiet on a lonely hill. Most people walk past them without a second thought. Just rocks, just history. But some say the stones are older than time itself, carved by forces we don't understand. Some say they hum when no one's listening. And on certain days, when the sun hits just right, they awaken. Claire Randall didn't believe in magic. She believed in medicine, facts, and reason. After all, she'd spent years on the front lines of World War II as a combat nurse. She had seen real pain, real loss, real science. When the war ended, Claire hoped to find something she'd lost along the way. Peace. She traveled with her husband, Frank, to the Highlands of Scotland for a second honeymoon. A chance. Claire stumbled through the forest, heart racing, her breath catching in her throat. Trees towered above her, their branches closing in like arms reaching out. The sounds were different now. No hum of cars, no distant chatter of modern life, just birdsong, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the low, threatening beat of drums echoing through the hills. Something was very wrong. She could feel it in her bones. She tried to stay calm, clinging to reason. Maybe she'd hit her head. Maybe she was dreaming. Maybe this was some kind of historical reenactment. But deep down, she already knew. The clothes people wore. The weapons they carried. Their accents, their suspicion. These weren't actors. This wasn't a play. This was real. She had fallen through time. She didn't know it yet, but she was now in the year 1743, 2 centuries before the world she called home. The Scotland she now saw was wild, divided, and on the edge of war. The British Army occupied the land, hunting down rebel Highlanders who refused to kneel to the English crown. These weren't the peaceful villages of post-war Inverness. This was a brutal place, full of danger, secrets, and suspicion. Claire was a stranger. Her clothes were wrong. Her accent was strange. She spoke of things no one understood: penicillin, x-rays, motor cars, even her knowledge of herbs and healing. Once useful on the battlefield, made people nervous here. To some, she looked like a healer. To others, she looked like a witch. But even in the midst of fear and confusion, Claire did what she always did. She kept moving. She stayed alert. She watched. She listened. That's what had kept her alive during the war. And now it was all she had. But this time, she wasn't just fighting for survival. She was fighting for answers. For a way home. For a way to understand what had just happened to her. As she wandered the land, she met men in kilts, speaking Gaelic, brandishing swords. She saw castles, fires, and fields ready for battle. Every step she took only pulled her deeper into a time she wasn't meant to live in, but fate had other plans. The stones didn't bring her here by mistake, not entirely. There was someone waiting for her in this past. A red-haired Highland warrior named Jamie Fraser, but Claire hadn't met him yet. Not here. Not yet. For now, she was alone, lost in time, and being hunted. Because in this world, knowledge is power, and a woman like Claire, out of place and full of strange ideas, is both valuable. And dangerous. Reconnect. A place to breathe again. He was a historian. She was a survivor. Together, they were searching for something forgotten both in history and in themselves. It started as a quiet morning. Claire was alone, walking through the fields near a place called Craig na Dun. It was said the locals held strange rituals there, dancing, singing, offerings, a throwback to the old world. To the druids, to the gods they once called. Claire didn't think much of it. She climbed the hill, curious about the stones. They were beautiful, cold, ancient, but something felt different. The air around them was heavy, like before a thunderstorm. The ground vibrated beneath her feet. The moment her hand touched the tallest stone, the world twisted. She didn't scream. There was no time, no warning. The sky flickered. Her body turned cold and hot all at once. It felt like falling, but she never hit the ground. And when her eyes opened, everything had changed. This was no longer the Scotland she knew. No cars, no buildings, no sign of the 20th century. Just trees, horses, and the sound of men shouting in the distance. She didn't understand what had happened, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't in 1945 anymore. And this was only the beginning of Claire's journey. It happened in a moment. So fast, so strange, it didn't feel real. Claire had climbed the hill at Craig, not done alone, drawn by something she couldn't explain. The standing stones stood in a wide circle, like ancient sentinels watching over the land. She'd visited them once before with Frank. They had watched local women dance in a ritual at dawn, part theater, part tradition. But this time, it was quiet, empty, no dancers, no husband. Just her and the stones. One of them stood taller than the rest. She stepped toward it slowly, the wind pushing at her back. The air grew thick around her. Her ears rang. A strange buzzing rose from deep inside the stone, as if it had a heartbeat. As if it was alive. She reached out. The second her fingers brushed the surface, it hit her. The world twisted, her body seized, her vision blurred. It was like being pulled underwater, like falling into a deep whirlpool without end. No light, no sound, just spinning. Then silence. When she opened her eyes, the sky looked the same. The hill was still there. The stones were still standing, but something was wrong. The air smelled different, fresher, wilder. There were no signs of people. No tire tracks, no voices, no Frank. Confused, Claire walked downhill, calling his name. Trees that once seemed small now looked overgrown, wild. The road that led to their car was gone. Instead, there was thick grass and old trails. She stumbled forward, thinking maybe she had passed out, hit her head, imagined it. She looked for anything familiar, a car, a fence, the sound of a radio, nothing. And then the gunshot. It rang through the forest, sharp and real. She dropped to the ground, instinct from her time as a wartime nurse kicking in, crawling forward. She reached a clearing and saw them. Men, wearing red coats, carrying muskets, British soldiers, but not like the ones she'd studied in school. These weren't actors or museum guides. They were real. Dirty, shouting, hunting someone through the woods. And then they saw her. She ran. Branches slapped her face. Her heart pounded. She didn't know where to go, just away. Far from the men in red, from this strange place that felt like a dream she couldn't wake up from. Every footstep pounded with the same question. Where am I? What just happened? She didn't know yet that the stone had pulled her back to 1743, that the world she knew, her home, her husband, everything was gone. But she knew this. She wasn't dreaming. This was real. The pain, the fear, the breath in her lungs. It was all too sharp to be fake. Claire had fallen through time. And now, the past wasn't just history, it was a place she had to survive. Claire didn't have time to make sense of it all. Every second was survival. She ran until her legs gave out. When she finally stopped, her clothes were torn, her hands scratched by thorns, and her mind was spinning. She had no map, no help, and no idea what century she was standing in, but it didn't take long for the past to show itself in full. Smoke curled in the distant campfires, not chimneys. Horses trotted past, ridden by men with swords strapped across their backs. She hid, heart racing, watching. No one carried a phone. No one wore anything close to modern clothing. Their language was rough, half Gaelic, half English. Their movements, sharp like they expected a fight at any moment. Asterisk that's when she heard a scream. Asterisk a man Scottish, wounded on the ground. His shoulder was dislocated, blood trickling down his arm. Before she could think, her nurse instincts kicked in. She rushed from hiding, ignoring the danger, and dropped to her knees beside him. Her hands moved without hesitation. She gave orders like she did on the battlefield, commanding the men nearby to hold him still while she popped the shoulder back into place. Asterisk they looked at her like she had fallen from the sky. Asterisk in their eyes she had. Asterisk the man she helped was named Jamie Fraser. He was young, serious, and wary but grateful. His men, Highland rebels, didn't know what to make of her. Her strange clothes, her clipped speech, the way she handled wounds like it was nothing, it frightened them. Some thought she was a spy, others whispered sorceress. Asterisk Jamie didn't know what she was. But he knew she had saved his life. Asterisk as. They rode away on horseback. Claire tried to stay calm, asking careful questions. What year was it? What battle were they talking about? Where were they going? The answers came slowly, but each one tightened a knot in her stomach. Asterisk the year was 1743. Asterisk Scotland was on the edge of the Jacobite rising, a rebellion that, in history books, would fail. And she was now caught in the middle of it. Asterisk back in 1945, Claire had studied this period. She knew what was coming: bloody battles, political schemes, and the crushing defeat of the Scottish clans. But knowing history and living it are two very different things. Asterisk now she had to survive it. She was a woman alone in a time where women had no rights, no voice, and no protection. Her medical knowledge was useful but also dangerous. Too much knowledge could get a woman branded a witch. Too little, and she'd be useless. She walked a tightrope with every word, every step, every gesture. Asterisk still, something in her refused to panic. Asterisk she wasn't just lost, she was determined. Determined to understand what happened. Determined to find a way back. But the deeper she stepped into this old world, the more it pulled at her. The fire, the faces, the men she had just saved. Asterisk she didn't know it yet, but Jamie Fraser would soon become much more than a patient. Asterisk and the stones. They had taken her from one life and thrown her into another she never asked for but might be destined to. Live. Asterisk as the days passed, Claire realized this wasn't just a strange detour through time, it was a trap. One she couldn't escape. Every attempt to get back to the stones at Craig na Dun failed. Either the roads were too dangerous, or she was under watch by those who didn't trust her. The more she tried to run, the more she was pulled into their world. Asterisk and the deeper she went, the harder it became to leave. Asterisk life in 1743 was harsh. The Highlands were alive with conflict, not just between the Scottish clans and the British Army, but between loyalty and betrayal, faith and superstition. People lived and died by their name, their bloodline, their sword. Claire's knowledge of the future gave her a strange advantage. But it also marked her as something unnatural. A woman who knew too much. A woman out of place. Asterisk then came Captain Jonathan Black Jack Randall, a man who looked exactly like her husband Frank, but whose soul was black with cruelty. A British officer with power, charm, and no mercy. He suspected Claire from the moment he laid eyes on her, and unlike others, he didn't fear her because she was different. He feared what she might expose, and he would do anything to break her. Asterisk yet in this world of danger and deceit, there was one person who saw Claire not as a threat, but as a mystery worth protecting. Jamie Fraser, a Highland warrior with fire in his eyes and scars on his back. At first, they were strangers thrown together by war and chance. But slowly, through shared danger and quiet moments in the woods, something more began to grow. Asterisk he was from the past. She was from the future. But their hearts, they met in the same moment. Asterisk still, Claire couldn't forget where she came from. She had a husband waiting in another century, a life built after war, a promise. And yet, here in this rough, old world, she was needed, she had purpose, and she was falling for a man history had never told her about. Asterisk now, Claire stands between two lives, and time is not on her side. Asterisk, will she return to her world? Or stay and fight for the one she's been thrown into? Can love survive across centuries, or will history repeat itself, no matter how much you try to change it? Asterisk, the journey has only just begun. Asterisk, what to expect next? Asterisk, rebellion, romance, betrayal, and choices that can't be undone. Asterisk, because in Outlander, the past isn't gone, it's alive, and it never lets you go easily. Asterisk.